إن الحمد لله ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهدي الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله ونصلي ونسلم عليه وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين وعلى أصحابه بجهدهم وتضحيتهم قام هذا الدين فرضي الله عنهم أجمعين. I wanted to talk a little bit about Surah Yusuf and some of the lessons that we can get from Surah Yusuf, because there are so many people that are struggling either with depression and these types of things. And firstly, we need to realize something. The whole issue of mental health is not new. The Muslims were some of the most brilliant people to deal with mental health. You have Imam al-Balkhi in the 9th century who was writing on mental health, and he laid down some principles that unfortunately most of us forgot. And so now when we talk about people struggling, when we talk about people having issues in their lives, when we talk about people being sad, the first thing that comes to people's mind is that it must be a jinn or it must be sihr. That's not how the Muslims used to think about it before. It wasn't an issue that if someone was having problems, it was an issue of sihr, or it was an issue of hasad, or if it was an issue of that nature. Not everything is the issue when life doesn't go the way that we want it to. Not everything is the issue of saying that it's sihr, saying that it's magic, or saying that it's the ayn. This type of approach is not good. And not everything is to say when someone is having difficulty that they have weakness in iman. Yaqub alayhi salatu wasalam, when he lost Yusuf, his own sons took Yusuf and they plotted to kill him. And he knew inside, he felt that there was something that was wrong. He felt that there was something that was not right. يعني وممكن هذا من فراسة المؤمنين. We can say that's from the insight of the believers, that they can feel at times when certain things are not right, but they can't put their finger exactly on what's going on. He cried. The Quran describes it as he cried till his eyes turned white. يعني أصابه الحزن الشديد حتى قال يا أسف. And so when he said يا أسف, the meaning of that is that he was going through a sorrow that was so profound, and he cried and he kept crying. But one of the things that we find in nubuwwah, in this case in prophethood, especially in the example of Yaqub alayhi salatu wasalam, it's not that his humanity was denied. It's not that there's a denial of the fact that there's certain things in life that make us so sad that they break us. It's not that. The Quran is affirming that reality that we as human beings will hurt. The Quran is affirming that reality that this dunya, this time period, when we say dunya, it means it's a short time period. When we say akhirah, it's what comes after and it what remains. The Quran affirms that reality that human beings will feel pain in this dunya. The problem is this, that on one side we have the advancement of technology, so it makes certain things easy. And on the other side, we've lost ourselves in thinking that this dunya is Jannah. This dunya is never going to be Jannah. How we imagine Jannah is a place in which there's no sorrow, there's no pain, there's no need, there's no problems. This dunya, if we want to understand it in its proper place, is not an idealistic place. It's not a place where all of the problems are removed. That's the meaning of iman. The meaning of Iman is that you understand the nature of this reality that you live in, that you understand your time in this world. If you don't have that proper understanding, then there's certain things that will not only impact you and affect you, but they will break you and break everyone around you, and you'll lose your akhirah in the process as well. Islam is not that religion that says that if you make mistakes and you make sins, that Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala doesn't love you. Islam is not that religion that says that if you're not the best person, that you don't have any hope to enter into Jannah. There's no such thing. Islam gives the promise of saying that if you believe in La ilaha illallah, yes, there's consequences to what it is that we do as human beings. There's consequences. That's the reality of being a human being. But Islam promises us still with all of that, with all of our imperfections, that even if we were to spend some time in the state of purification in the hellfire, that there's still hope. And even some of the ulama, they debated. And I incline to that position, even though it's a minority position. Some of them even said that at one point in time, even the hellfire itself will be destroyed, and the only thing that will remain will be Jannah. You don't have to believe that. That's not the position of the majority of the ulama. But it's a position which gives us a true understanding what Islam is. Like we mentioned before, that the deen of Islam is not about forcing you and obligating you to do things. It's become that. But the deen of Islam is about teaching you where the benefit is at. We're going to make mistakes. We're going to be in problems. We're going to have issues. And all the more when we're mixing with different people that don't believe like we believe. That's why it's important, especially for young people, that you understand how you navigate life. Navigating life is not that you fall into problems and difficulties like some of the youth here. I'm not talking about necessarily this masjid. I'm talking about in this city, in this environment. I know the culture very well. You have problems at home, it's time to party. You have personal issues, it's time to smoke weed. Your birthday comes, it's time to get drunk. That's how it is that the non-Muslims deal with life. They deal with life in that way. It's not to condemn them, but they deal with life in that way because that's what they know. But when we look at the reality of Yaqub, when he was going to his pain and suffering, he says, قَالَ إِنَّمَا أَشْكُو بَثِّي وَحُزْنِي إِلَى اللَّهِ. What it is that I'm going through and all of that pain and that suffering, I communicate it to Allah. Because I know that Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala is the one that has control of this world. I may not see where it is that Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala is going to aid me in the moment. It may not come the way that I want it to come. But I do believe that Allah wants good for me. That's underlying that. That's Iman. That's Iman. That's to believe that Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala has the best interest for you. Life is not without its pain, people. Life is not without its suffering. This surah to Yusuf, was revealed at the time period when the Prophet ﷺ lost Khadija and lost his uncle. And his own relatives were fighting him and pushing him out of Mecca and making life difficult. Not only fighting him, they were torturing the Muslims. And the Quran comes to give this relief. And the story is like from the beginning to the end to say to the Prophet ﷺ that although that you're going through this stuff right now, just like the prophets that came before you, if you hold on to Iman, if you hold on to hope especially, if you hold on to patience, that at the end the reward will be with you. Don't believe that the reward is with those who oppose that which is good. Those of us who believe in love, those of us who believe in justice, those of us who believe that life can be better, hold on. Even though everything that is being presented to us right now is that there is no justice, that there is no love, that there is no trust. That's why we say the core of the believer is the issue of khuluq. The core of the believer is our character. The issue of, in this case, we find that even within that family, and we keep mentioning this over and over again in different time periods, in that family itself where they knew what was right, because they had a father that was a prophet, alayhi salam, and they had a brother that was a prophet, alayhi salam, Yusuf and Yaqub, alayhi salam. You found that still within that household, they chose to go in the opposite way. And we know some of you struggle with that. You struggle with your siblings. You struggle with your parents. We know parents struggle with their children. But where are you going to turn to in that reality, what it is that you're going through? The first thing, you can't deny the fact that there's something that you're going through. You can't deny that. It's going to come out in something. Dua is one of the most powerful things. Even if the salah is something that is not reaching you, even if it is that you stop praying. But if you leave dua, then you lost hope. If you leave the understanding that Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala is the one that will aid you, you don't necessarily always have to feel it. It's not everything by a feeling. But if you lose that belief that Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala is the one that created this world, Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, the one that in the beginning of every ayah of the Quran, except Surah At-Tawbah, begins with Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, or every surah of the Quran, sorry, Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala is speaking to us. Allah wants you to know that reality of who He is. That's important. With the struggles of the Muslims, that what the Muslims are going through, don't think that it's not intentional to break you. Quraysh tried to break the Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam. They used every means in the dunya to try to break the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam and stop the Muslim from existing. It wasn't just the issue of stopping them from Salah and Masjid al-Aqsa, that type of thing. It wasn't just the issue of making them refugees in the dunya. It was an issue of going to their hearts and going to their iman so that they stop having hope in Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. That's the reality of the conditions of the dunya. Yani, poverty can take you to kufr. Oppression can take you to kufr. How many people have we seen that they were in the da'wah and they were arrested and locked up and tortured, and at the end they came out not believing anymore? It's possible to be arrested, to be thrown in the desert, in the heat, left alone, without your family, without support, not knowing what's going to happen to your family. Everything that you loved and everything that you struggled for is taken from you. It's possible to break. It's possible. But if we don't turn to Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, we don't have to be perfect to turn to Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. We don't have to be the people of Salah to turn to Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. We don't have to be the people of the strongest iman to turn to Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. If we just make that intention and that effort, and we have that hope, that gives us an exit from what it is that we're going through. But we have to be patient. Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam, he was exiled for how long? The Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam was exiled from Mecca for how long? How much torture, how much suffering, but he maintained and he kept going and he had iman and so on and so forth. And it allowed him to continue, and Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala gave him that fath, gave him that opening. Yaqub, he told his children, no, your souls must have tempted you to do something evil. So I'm left with nothing but beautiful patience. Sabr Jameel. I trust Allah will return them all to me. His sons that went missing because of the treachery of his own children, the plotting, the jealousy, the things that go on in families that destroy families, was right there before us. the fighting between siblings, the fighting of how can I gain the favor of Baba over you? How can I be the one that gets the inheritance over you? That type of fighting that we have in our communities sometimes. I'm not necessarily saying this community, but in the human reality that's there. He turned away from them lamenting, meaning that he was crying and he was feeling sorrow. And that's when he says, Yani, Ya Asafa. He's struck by that sorrow that's having him cry day after day after day, like some of our parents for their children. Some of our parents crying for their children that they leave their homes and they go and they hang out with their friends and they come back and they curse at their families and they fight with their families. That reality happens. And they're crying day and night and wondering, why is it that after we have Islam, why is it my children are Muslim? Why is it that we're going through this? We have to hold on. Everyone is responsible for themselves. يعني كل واحد مسؤول على نفسه وسيحاسب أمام الله تبارك وتعالى. Everyone is responsible for themselves before Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala. And that's what we tell some of the parents. If you did what you can do, if you make dua for your children and they still go against you and they still can't see the reality, you can't break, you have to continue to move forward. You have to continue to move forward. You can't break and you can't allow that to destroy your life incomplete. It gets worse in some situations when we don't want to confront those situations. There's some situations of addiction people that the children, when they come back to the home, they come back to the home to steal from the uncle. They come back to the home to steal from the parents. They come back to the home and they promise to do this and to do that and they don't do it. That's the reality. That's why when it comes to the issue of understanding these things of where it is that human beings break, they break from not having love. They break from not having the right thoughts, from not being able to deal with problems. Yaqub, he was responded to by his children. They told him, they said, by Allah, you will not cease to remember Yusuf until you lose your health or even your life. That's the struggle of the parent. That's the love of the parent. That's the love of any of us, that we love someone, that we find them not with us, that they're going through issues and we suffer because they suffer. And then he replied, I complain of my anguish and sorrow only to Allah. And I know from Allah what you don't know. That's the power right there. This is the thing that we're not seeing from the believers. It's fine that we have struggles. It's fine that we have to go to counseling. It's fine that we say that we're weak. But it's scary when we start seeing people that say they no longer believe in Allah. Okay, you go through that for one period of time. If you try it and you see the believer in the struggle versus the one that doesn't believe in the struggle. The believer in the struggle has faith in Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala, the one who created the universe, the one who gives us life, the one who gives us the promise that after death there's life, the one who gives us a sense of hope. And the kafir, the one that doesn't believe completely. I'm not talking about the people of the book. I'm talking about the one that denies that Allah exists, the one that doesn't have a sense of hope. There's only after that what? We see it over and over again. Complete breakdown, darkness. Life is nowhere for that person. And many just getting high, getting this, that to try to take away the pain, and the pain doesn't leave. And so when the pain doesn't leave, then they think about leaving life itself. Yaqub is teaching us, yes, we are going to have that struggle in life that will at times shake us and almost break us. But we should turn to Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala. Not only that, he says, "O my sons, go and search diligently for Yusuf and his brother, and do not lose hope in the mercy of Allah, for no one loses hope in the mercy of Allah except those who don't believe." إِلَى الْقَوْمِ الْكَافِرِينَ. Yusuf, alayhi salatu wasalam, and his father, they teach us that reality. Yaqub didn't just say, we just make dua only. Yaqub, he tried. He sent his children to go find Yusuf, and he continually believed. He didn't believe in something that was impossible to understand. In other words, you have to take the means. Even though we're in these situations, that when we still take the means, and day by day we still continue. But without hope, people, without hope, يعني بدون الرجاء ما في حياة. Without hope, there's no life. Suffering doesn't make any sense. What we go through doesn't make any sense. Without hope, that's the reality. At the end of the day, hope and believing in Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, and that was there, I'll leave that for another khutbah. Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala comes running to us if we make an effort to Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, is in the Hadith Qudsi. This is a part of Iman that we have to understand. Whatever effort that we make towards Allah, it could be small, Allah comes to us. But it's not going to be as we want. Because maybe it is that what we want is yani darrin lana. Maybe what we want is something that's harmful to us. That's why we ask Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, after praising Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, from the adab of dua, from the etiquettes of dua, from how to make dua, first we should praise Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala and be thankful to Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. Then we call Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala on those names that are close to the situation. If we want mercy, we call Allah by mercy. If we want love, we call Allah by love. If we want Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala to increase us in our rizq, then we call Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala by that name. Whatever name of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala is suitable to this situation. And that's after making sure that we made istighfar. And then we end with the salawat on the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, believing. That changes our condition. We are able to handle the situation. We're able to get a sense of peace. That's important, that we don't leave dua in those situations. And we don't leave having a good opinion of Allah. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر لي ولكم والحمد لله رب العالمين. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم وبارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم في العالمين إنك حميد مجيد. We ask Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala to forgive us our sins. We ask Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala to give us hope. We ask Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala to increase us in our rizq. We ask Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala to send peace into our hearts. We ask Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala to make our affairs easy. We ask Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala to give us a sense of joy. We ask Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala to increase us in Iman. We ask Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala to allow us to die in the state of Islam. And we ask Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala for our children and our family members, and especially those that are sick and those that have died and those that are oppressed in the land. We ask Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala to facilitate for them, to protect them, to alleviate them, to give them a sense of victory. And we ask Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, most of all, to allow us to taste the sweetness of Iman. Aqimus Salah.